Hey everyone, it's Rob Ryder on Holy Trinity Sunday, June 7th, 2020. And hey, all lives matter, but I only kneel for Jesus because taking a knee is a sign of allegiance. And Black Lives Matter is a George Soros funded terrorist organization. So, you want to be careful who you take a knee to. Now, here in the last week or so, the mayor of Chicago, whatever her name is, Lightfoot, she came out and said that in the future, if you want to be a director, a deputy, or the IG, Inspector General of any agency, you're going to have to pledge allegiance to the New World Order. All right, and that's how they would control everything in all these agencies with three people. All you need is the director, the deputy, and the IG, because those are the people that decide what gets either done or what gets investigated because it wasn't done. And this is their thing. What we're dealing with here in the United States today. There's many of these organizations. So Attorney General Barr, he officially stated this week that the violence instigated and carried out by Antifa, another domestic terrorist organization, and other similar groups in connection with the rioting is domestic terrorism and will be treated accordingly. I believe that includes then the Black Lives Matter, Masons, and the Democratic Party. If you watch some of the videos from this week, you got all sorts of cops out. I won't say all sorts. You have videos of cops destroying their own vehicles and standing on the sidewalk and telling people what to paint on the frickin' walls and staging bricks around the city, right? They're either police or they're people disguised as police, wearing police uniforms and driving police cars. I mean, who really knows until you really, check every jot and tittle, because we have all this symbolism that's being used. So, we're going to look at all those things, but what can we do about it? Well, Jesus said, "Be as wise as serpents and gentle as doves." That'd be Matthew 10:16. I believe that's what it was. I better go back and look. But anyways, hey, don't kneel to the devil. Rebuke his ass and file a terrorism risk insurance claim, which is really what Attorney General Barr just did. Is he did one of the steps that's required to have any violence certified as an act of terrorism. And if they do that, and the Secretary of Treasury certifies it, then you can file a claim against your own insurance for if it has a Terrorism Risk Insurance Act rider, right? Which is in liability insurance for sure. I don't know if it's what other insurances it's in, but if your insurance has that, you can put it in. Well, since these people aren't done yet, I'm saying even if you don't have it, you can get it, and then you can put it in. But the people that could use it today are all these people that have been damaged by all the looting, the fires, and so forth. And so if you know any of them, or you can go tell them, say, look, you guys need to go look at your general liability insurance policy and file a claim for terrorism risk insurance, which we'll talk about more here in just a minute. And I had talked about in previous videos, and, now we're going to try to use it a little bit better. So, hey, I'm Staff Sergeant Robert Allen Rutluski, U.S. Army veteran, a.k.a. Rob Ryder. If you want to email me, it's quarterrecord@aol.com. So, I got lots to show you, and I need a minute to start working through them. So let me line a few things up, and we'll be right back. So if you've never watched my videos before, if you went to Rob Ryder, ROBBBRYDER on YouTube, and you went back to, let's go back to about here, reading the back of the can, right? Search by upload date. However, go back to reading the back of the can and go forward, and you kind of cover all the things I'll be covering in this video today. But just reading the back of the can, you have a claim, wanted public adjuster, public state investigator, all have to do with liability insurance, as I was learning about it myself. I have a couple here on using kerosene or turpentine as your remedy for your illnesses, because it doesn't cure anything. It just dissolves, right? It dissolves germs, viruses, microorganisms, whatever it is, because they all have some kind of fatty skin, if for lack of a better term, that they just dissolve and things go away. And you can use a nebulizer and inhale it, and that's what I was talking about in those videos there. But the dose makes the poison, like anything else. Use too much, it'll kill you. Drink too much water, it'll kill you. Eat too much sugar, it'll kill you. Lots of things will kill you if you have too much. Well, so will turpentine or kerosene. But in the dosages we're talking, were teaspoon, drops, it's no worries. And then I started talking about this terrorism risk insurance, which had to do with insurance under general liability, because they have these riders in there. And it's like, well, how can you use this stuff? Well, so then I filed one after I had done these videos about the governor not being, they don't have a proper oath of office and so forth. So, and because the governor or no other state officer has the oath that's in 4 U.S.C. 101, and I might as well just go get it right now so I don't forget. 4 U.S.C. 101. Or I really suggest everybody just do what I just did, 4 U.S.C. 101, put it into Google, find the .gov, govinfo.gov link. Go here, go to PDF. There you have your own copy. Okay, and this law is based on the very first law, public act, that was ever ratified after the Constitution. Well, after the Constitution was ratified. First law passed after the Constitution was ratified. Is in 1 Stat 23. For statutes at large, Session 1, page 23 of the very first book is this law under 1 Stat 23 that talks about the oath that satisfies the 6th article of the Constitution. It says this is the oath that does it. You don't take this oath, you haven't satisfied it. Well, that's been codified, and now it's in here for oath by members of legislatures and officers. And this is in 4 U.S.C. 101, which has to do with the flag, seal, seat of government, and the states. And it says every member of a state legislature and every executive or judicial officer of a state shall, before he proceeds to execute the duties of his office, take the oath in the following form. To wit, I state your name, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States. Well, your identity or identification is called your full legal name, and in most places now, if you have a real ID compliant identification, then it's on there. It's your first name, middle name if you say you have one, last name. Now, my name is Robert Allen Ritluski, but long ago I said, look, I don't have a middle name. I have a given name. It's Robert Allen. So since I don't have a middle name, whenever they ask for a middle initial, I don't put one. I just put first name, Robert Allen. And this is one of the things they did. They made you start taking your given name and splitting it up and putting it in the middle name box. And you can go to the Social Security website and just Google Social Security Administration legal name and read where it takes you on the Social Security website. And it'll say there that they don't use your middle name for part of your legal name. Well, if you put, like in my case, Allen in the middle name box on the SS5 form to get a Social Security number, they're going to disregard it as being part of your legal name, and it just clouded the title to your property. Now, they're not supposed to do that, but that is what they do. So this is really important, right, that people use their full legal name on anything that's legal. And this is the oath that the federal government requires for somebody like the governor to have done before they can claim to be the governor. It doesn't matter if she has to take another oath, he, she, doesn't matter. Her, the judge, county commissioner, county clerk, township supervisor, any of these people. It's fine that the state constitution says they have to take an oath of office, but so does 4 U.S.C. 101, and it wants this oath, and it's not satisfied until I state your name, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States. And so I've been telling people, if you have a court case, you need to go and tell the judge, Judge, if you don't have this oath of office, then I'm not in your jurisdiction. Right? I'm in the jurisdiction where you had to have taken this oath. I don't care if they took a different oath. Now, remember, when you go to court, the judge didn't bring you there. The fucktard sitting next to you did. You know, on the other table, right? The prosecutor or the plaintiff's attorney or whoever it is. So, you know, so when you bring it to the judge's attention that, well, according to this law, you don't have any jurisdiction over me, he can easily dismiss the case and just do the right thing. But you need to give him the opportunity to do it. So give him the fucking evidence. Show him this law. I, A.B., right, your full legal name, do solemnly swear I will support the Constitution of the United States. Your Honor, Magistrate, if you haven't taken this oath, then you don't have any jurisdiction in this matter because I'm in the United States. Right? Because those see, these courts you go to, they're not state courts. I know people, you know, want you to believe that's what it is. If you didn't know this, you need to know they're not state courts. Right? These people have nothing to do with the government. None of them have the proper oath of office. Even the oath they take isn't the oath that's in Michigan in the state constitution. It kind of looks like it, but you know it isn't. They capitalize words different, and that's all it takes, right? That's different grammar. It's not the same style, so forth and so on. So you know you should use this to your advantage. If you have a court case, don't wait to go to court. Mail it to the judge. Say, Judge, would you please look at this? I don't believe you have any jurisdiction. See, Judge, I'm in the United States, and it says you have to have this oath. So if you don't have this oath, then this is not the proper venue for me to be tried in. I ask you to dismiss the case and see what happens. Right? They're not going to chastise you for bringing them the truth. You may just have to tell them more than one time. Now, I've done videos on this in the past where, look, if you go into a courtroom and you say, Judge, I accept your oath, I bind you to it, and I remind you have a fiduciary duty, and I need you to acknowledge that, Judge. And, you know, if he doesn't, say, well, I'm going to say it again, Judge. And if you have to say it 3 times, say it 3 times. But by the 3rd time, by the time you're done with the 3rd time, he will acknowledge that you have accepted his oath. See, because the oath that he gave it's a gift or donation, but you have to accept it. It's a unilateral contract. Only he signed it. Right? You need to accept it. If you do it in open court, well, now you've accepted his oath. Now what they're going to try to do is get you to get out of the courtroom, right? End it for the day because tomorrow is a new day and he would be under a different rule, right? He'd get back to where he was in the first place. You know, so I'm not advocating you do these things, that you wait that long to do it. But if you had no choice and you're going to court tomorrow, right, you could either say, Judge, before we start, I want to say a prayer, and bend your head and say a prayer, right? Say the Lord's Prayer. Say the prayer of St. Michael. You know, just say a prayer. And, you know, and you will have changed the venue of the court because nobody ever swears anything. They've taken God out of the courtroom. If they want you to swear in the Bible, don't swear on the cover because it's got 2 sets of law in that don't, they're not compatible with each other. You got Old Testament law and New Testament law. They're not the same. If you swear in the Bible, you're a double-minded man. Right? So if you want to swear in the Bible and you're a Christian, say, we need to open up the New Testament, please. There, put your hand on the New Testament. That's what Washington did. That's the story. I wasn't there. But this is this is the thing that there's no way to get around it until they can show you the oath that satisfies this one section, 101. There's no reason to worry about 102 or anything else. So, it doesn't matter what they said you did. If they don't have the authority to bring you there, then what does it matter? If they don't have the authority to enforce the law, then what does it matter? Obviously, they think that you're in their jurisdiction and they can do this to you, so rebut the presumption. Okay, we got lots more to look at. Hang on a second. Okay, if you went to this brother's video he did here this week, what day was this? He's just right on there, I thought. But it's George Floyd riots and Anonymous exposed as deep state psyops for NWO by a guy who calls himself Young Pharaoh. And I'm gonna let him do all the tying together for anybody who wants to go watch between the Democratic Party, the Freemasons, the Ku Klux Klan, the Muslims, the devil, and they're all in cahoots with each other. Right? He'll tell you that back in the 1870s or something, there's like volumes of testimony from the Democrats saying that the Ku Klux Klan's part of them. And the Ku Klux Klan used to wear this symbol on, this is a Ku Klux Klan. Unfortunately, you can't show you the whole thing in this picture, but he does, right? That's the point. And it's on their uniform. Well, what he said is they gave it to these guys, and then this over here now is a Ku Klux Klan, and they have it's like the Greek cross, not the Latin cross, but a Greek cross. The said came from the Knights Templar and da-da-da-da. So he's tying together Democrats, Muslim Brotherhood, Louis Farrakhan, any Muslims, period. And the Ku Klux Klan is all part of the same system, and they're all using the same symbolism as Satan does. Well, one of the things he showed in there is this slaves collar. And look what's in the fucking corner, man. That's a Mason symbol. Right? So, you got blacks that want to be Masons. You just join in the fucking people that enslaved you. And it's all tied to the Democratic Party. Right? So, he did a really good job. I mean, he swears a lot. He swears a hell of a lot more than I do. I mean, if you don't like the word fuck, you're going to probably be immune to it by the time you're done if you can watch the whole 3 hours, which I haven't done myself yet, but I plan on finishing it up. So, he has lots of good information. Enough on that. Okay. Close some of these out so my computer works better. So here's a list of projects supported by George Soros. There it is, Black Lives Matter. Right? It doesn't say Antifa. I've been trying to find the one for Antifa, but I don't need it. The Attorney General said it. But I'm just saying, here's some of the things that are supported by George Soros. So he's a supporter of terrorism. So what did the Attorney General say? This was on Sunday, May 31st. This was after President Trump had tweeted that he was going to label Antifa as a domestic terrorist organization. So with rioting that is occurring in many of our cities around the country, voices of peaceful and legitimate protests have been hijacked by violent radical elements. Groups outside radicals and agitators are exploiting the situation to pursue their own separate, violent, and extreme agenda. It is time to stop watching the violence and confront it and stop it. The continued violence and destruction of property endangers the lives and livelihoods of others, interferes with the rights of peaceful protesters as well as other citizens. So file an insurance claim. It is also undercuts the urgent work that needs to be done through constructive engagement between affected communities and law enforcement leaders to address legitimate grievances, preventing reconciliation and driving us apart, and a goal that these radical groups is the goal of these radical groups, and we cannot let them succeed. It is the responsibility of the state and local leaders to ensure that adequate law enforcement resources, including National Guard, where necessary, deployed on the streets to reestablish law and order. We saw this finally happen in Minneapolis last night, and it worked. Federal law enforcement action will be directed to apprehending and charging the violent radical agitators who have hijacked peaceful protests and are engaging in violations of federal law. To identify criminal organizations and instigators, and to coordinate federal resources with our state and local partner, federal law enforcement is using our existing network of 56 regional FBI Joint Terrorist Task Force. The violence instigated and carried out by Antifa and other similar groups in connection with the rioting is domestic terrorism and will be treated accordingly. And so this is, an official press release of the Office of the Attorney General, where he's made his decision that what he saw is can be defined as domestic terrorism. Well, he and hang on a second, I got to find that piece of paper. So in a general liability insurance policy is this rider. I don't know if that's the proper word for it or not, but it's been added to your insurance. You don't even have to pay for it. Give it to you for free. Under the Terrorism Risk Insurance Act, as amended, we must make coverage for certified acts of terrorism. Okay, so they have to cover a certified act of terrorism. Well, on a liability insurance policy, you're a first-party insured, so you would file your claim against your own insurance. But first, we got to have a certified act of terrorism. Now, so when I got my insurance, I got it for one reason. I planned on filing a claim against the state of Michigan, allegedly the person acting as the governor who doesn't have the oath I just showed you, but still issued an order and telling everybody that they had to go to their house. So now, and basically we couldn't leave our houses. Right? It's almost like house arrest. Well, I'm a veteran of the United States Army. You do that to me, you just made me a POW. Right? You don't have any authority over me. You don't have an oath of office. So if you're going to lock my ass down, well, I'm going to call myself a prisoner of war and ask the Army to come release me. So for those reasons, I filed a claim just so I could go through the process and see what would happen. And I got a letter back that denied it. But even that has interesting parts in of what they did. And I didn't know what I was going to do at the time except to complain about it. And then here last week, in my last video, I was talking about what the president had put in a recent executive order about discrimination on social media, where he said if you have it looks like he's just talking about these social media things, but what he's saying is if you have a complaint about unfair or deceptive acts or practices doing in business, right, you should take it to the Federal Trade Commission and file a complaint, which I did. So all these things kind of tie together, right? That's what I'm trying to say is that anything the president says, or and now that Attorney General Barr said, right, I'm going to try to use in some kind of process. Because in this act, it says a certified act of terrorism. So this is where we're back to now. Well, how do we get, what is a certified act of terrorism? Well, as defined in Section 102 of the Act, means an act is certified by the Secretary of the Treasury in consultation with the Secretary of Homeland Security and the Attorney General of the United States. Well, we already got his opinion, right? We got 1 out of 3. So to be an act of terrorism, to be a violent act or an act that is dangerous to human life, property, infrastructure, to have resulted in damage within the United States or outside the United States in the case of certain air carriers or vessels or the premises of the United States or mission, and to have been committed by an individual or individuals as part of an effort to coerce the civilian population of the United States or to influence the policy or affect the conduct of the United States government by coercion. Well, that's exactly what Attorney General Barr just did. He made his decision, right? So he's one of the 3 people needed to have a certified act of terrorism. I got too many windows open here. Hang on. Okay, so here in a little bit, I'm going to show you another example of a, it's really not a claim, it's an incident report form that you fill out that's in your insurance, in general liability insurance. And I had filled one out against the governor, got it kicked back, but now that the Attorney General has said what he said, I said, well, I'm just going to do another one, and I'll make it against Antifa and submit it, which I did this morning. And while I was getting ready to do all this, I had found this section here on the U.S. Department of Treasury website where it talked about risk management, and it gave contact information, right? So I sent them a copy and a copy of the letter that the Attorney General said, and said, look, the Attorney General said this is already an act of terrorism. I need to have, the people in the United States need the Secretary of Treasury to declare it to be an act of terrorism so we can claim it against our insurance. And if he would do that, then anybody who's been damaged by these acts of terrorism could file a claim against their insurance to get compensated. And we got lots of people having their, fucking businesses destroyed. So if you know any of these people, please have them watch the video and ask some questions. Let's get them an answer, right? And get them some money. So, but we're not quite there yet. I got a few more things to look at. What else was going on? So one of the other things was that I showed you where the young Pharaoh, he says that, the problem are Freemasons. Well, here yesterday, this is from Archbishop Vigano, Carlo Maria Vigano, who's been a thorn in the side of a number of people for the last few years. But he was the former apostolic nuncio of the United States of America. The United States. It's the United States of America. Which one do you mean, Archbishop? Do you mean the one that's under King George or what? Because the proper name is the United States of America. That's what was created under the Articles of Confederation. Right? United States of America, if you look at the Treaty of Peace of 1783, I've shown it in many videos. Just watch the last video I did. I'll show it in there. It shows in there that, King George III and his successors claim United States of America as one of their dominions. Which would make sense because those are the people who, were loyal to the king, but they didn't want to leave. And the whole idea of the Constitution was to have these two venues sharing the same territory, but, under their own agreement. Well, what the people of the United States of America did is they made it so nobody is that's claiming an office in the government has executed a oath of office in accordance with the 6th article of the Constitution, and therefore they don't have any authority, and these people know that. So, but this is what this was sent actually yesterday, so it was like an advanced copy, but it's got today's date on it. And it said, Dear Mr. President, in recent months we have been witnessing the formation of two opposing sides that I would call biblical. The children of light and the children of darkness. The children of light constitute the most conspicuous part of humanity, while the children of darkness represent an absolute minority. And yet the former, right, the children of the light, are the object of a sort of discrimination, which places them in a situation of moral inferiority with respect to their adversaries, who often hold strategic positions in government, in politics, in the economy, and in the media. Just like the frickin' mayor of Chicago was saying. In an apparently inexplicable way, the good are held hostage by the wicked, and by those who help them either out of self-interest or fearfulness. These two sides, which have a biblical nature, follow the clear separation between the offspring of the woman and the offspring of the serpent. On the one hand, there are those who, although they have 1,000 defects and weaknesses, are motivated by the desire to do good, to be honest, to raise a family, to engage in work, to give prosperity to their homeland, to help the needy, and in obedience to the law of God to merit the kingdom of heaven. On the other hand, there are those who serve themselves, who do not hold any moral principles, who want to demolish the family and nations, exploit workers to make themselves unduly wealthy, foment internal division and wars, accumulate power and money. For them, the fallacious illusion of temporal well-being will one day, if they do not repent, yield to the terrible fate that awaits them far from God in eternal damnation. In a society, Mr. President, these two opposing realities coexist as eternal enemies, just as God and Satan are eternal enemies. And it appears that the children of darkness, whom we may easily identify with the deep state, which you wisely oppose and which is fiercely waging war against you in these days, have decided to show their cards, so to speak, by now revealing their plans. They seem to be so certain of already having everything under control that they laid aside that circumspection that until now had at least partially concealed their true intentions. The investigations already underway will reveal the true responsibility of those who manage the COVID emergency, not only in the area of healthcare, but also in politics, the economy, and media. We will probably find that in this colossal operation of social engineering, there are people who have decided the fate of humanity, arrogating to themselves the right to act against the will of citizens and their representatives in the governments of nations. We will also discover that the riots in these days were provoked by those who, seeing that the virus is inevitably fading, and that the social alarm of the pandemic is waning, necessarily have had to provoke civil disturbances because they would be followed by repression, which, although legitimate, could be condemned as an unjustified aggression against the population. The same thing is also happening in Europe in perfect synchrony. It's quite clear that the use of street protests is instrumental to the purposes of those who would like to see someone elected in the upcoming presidential elections who embodies the goals of the deep state and who expresses those goals faithfully and with conviction. It will not be surprising if, in a few months, we learn once again that hidden behind these acts of vandalism and violence, there are those who hope to profit from the dissolution of the social order as to build a world without freedom. Solvet cogula, or if you say that, as the Masonic adage says, which I think is from chaos comes order or something like that. Although it may seem disconcerting, the opposing alignments I have described are also found in religious circles. There are faithful shepherds who care for the flock of Christ, but there are also mercenary infidels who seek to scatter the flock and hand the sheep over to be devoured by ravenous wolves. It is not surprising that these mercenaries are allies with the children of darkness and hate the children of light. Just as there is a deep state, there is also a deep church that betrays its duties and forswears its proper commitments before God. Thus, the invisible enemy, who good rulers fight against in public affairs, is also fought against by good shepherds in the ecclesiastical sphere. It is a spiritual battle, which I spoke about in my recent appeal, which was published on May 8th, which I believe would be for 2020. Although I went to look for it, I haven't found it yet, exactly what he had said. For the first time, the United States has in you a president who courageously defends the right to life, who is not ashamed to denounce the persecution of Christians throughout the world, who speaks of Jesus Christ and the rights of citizens to freedom of worship. Your participation in the March for Life, and more recently your proclamation of the month of April as National Child Abuse Prevention Month are actions that confirm which side you wish to fight on. And I dare to believe that both of us are on the same side in this battle, albeit with different weapons. For this reason, I believe the attack to which you are subjected after your visit to the National Shrine of St. John Paul II is part of an orchestrated media narrative which seeks not to fight racism and bring social order, but to aggravate dispositions, not to bring justice, but to legitimize violence and crime, not to serve the truth, but to favor one political faction. And it is disconcerting that there are bishops, such as those whom I have recently denounced, maybe the Archbishop of Washington, D.C., who, by their words, prove that they are aligned on the opposing side. They are subservient to the deep state, to globalism, to aligned thought, to the New World Order, which they invoke ever more frequently in the name of universal brotherhood, which has nothing Christian about it, but which evokes the Masonic ideals of those want to dominate the world by driving God out of the courts, out of schools, out of families, and perhaps even out of churches. The American people are mature and now understood how much the mainstream media does not want to spread the truth, but seeks to silence and distort it, spreading the lie that is useful for the purposes of their masters. However, it is important that the good, who are the majority, wake up from their sluggishness and do not accept being deceived by the minority of dishonest people with unavowable purposes. It is necessary that the good, the children of the light, come together and make their voices heard. What more effective way is there to do this, Mr. President, than by prayer, asking the Lord to protect you, the United States, and all humanity from this enormous attack of the enemy? Before the power of prayer, the deceptions of the children of darkness will collapse. Their plots will be revealed, their betrayal will be shown, and their frightening power will end in nothing, brought to light and exposed for what it is, an infernal deception. Mr. President, my prayer is constantly turned toward the beloved American nation, where I had the privilege and honor of being Pope Benedict XVI as Apostolic Nuncio, sent by Pope Benedict XVI as Apostolic Nuncio. In this dramatic and decisive hour, for all humanity, I am praying for you and also for those who are at your side in the government of the United States. I trust that the American people are united with me and you in prayer to Almighty God. United against invisible enemy of all humanity, I bless you and the First Lady, the beloved American nation, and all men and women of goodwill. Carlo Maria Vigano. He used his full legal name. Proper case, right? He's not hiding nothing. That's who he is. So, hang on a second. So I would suggest, getting a copy of this and reading it closer, especially if you're a Catholic. I mean, even if you're a Protestant, you really can't dispute what the man said, right? He's just laying it out. So, but especially the Catholics, he's saying, look, the president's right. So if you're holding any kind of office anywhere and you're a Catholic, you had better be on the president's side. He's telling you, if you're not on the president's side, your ass is going to hell, right? The president has taken the proper side. Now, he's using different weapons than what the church would want you to use, but it's because he's, the temporal ruler. Now, the rest of us, we're not temporal rulers, but we can use prayer. And we can be as wise as serpents and gentle as doves. And so if here's a good prayer to use for this exact circumstance. It's called the Prayer to Saint Michael the Archangel. which says, St. Michael the Archangel, defend us in battle. Be our defense against the wickedness and snares of the devil. May God rebuke him, we humbly pray. And do thou, O Prince of the heavenly host, by the power of God, thrust into hell Satan and all the evil spirits who prowl through the world seeking the ruin of souls. Amen. O glorious Prince St. Michael, chief commander of the heavenly host, guardian of souls, vanquisher of rebel spirits, servant in the house of the divine King, and our admirable conductor, you who shine with excellence and superhuman virtue, deliver us from all evil and turn to you with confidence, and enable us by your gracious protection to serve God more and more faithfully every day. Amen. There you are. Right? You want a prayer to say? Start saying that prayer. Now, this is a prayer that for the longest time had been in the Catholic Church since, I can't remember what pope it was. It was back in the, God, when was it? Back in the 1870s or something, when he had a vision of the devil and Jesus having a conversation at St. Michael's. And the devil saying that he only needed a little more time and he would destroy the church. And Jesus asked, well, how long would that be? He said, 70 to 100 years. Which should have ended, I think, like 1917 or something like that. It might have been 1917 when this happened. I get my dates confused. Anyways, well, from that time, after he had this vision, he wrote this prayer, and it had been said in every Sunday Mass until 1968, and then they took it out. And, a lot of the shit that's happened in the world has happened since 1968. So it's a very powerful prayer. You don't have to be a Catholic to say it, right? There are angels. St. Michael is an archangel, and you're not worshiping St. Michael. You're saying, defend us, brother, right? May God rebuke him, we humbly pray. And do thou, O Prince of the heavenly host, by the power of God, thrust into hell Satan and the other evil spirits who prowl about the world seeking the ruin of souls. Amen. Okay, let's get on to the paperwork now. Hang on just a second. Yeah, we're almost there. One other thing, especially if you're claiming to be a Catholic, right? Papal bans on Freemasonry. The Catholic Church first prohibited Catholics from membership of Masonic organizations and other secret societies in 1738. Since then, at least 11 popes have made pronouncements about the incompatibility of Catholic doctrines and Freemasonry. And if you were to go and look up this one here, Humanum Genus, was written by Pope Leo XIII in 1884. He lays it out 1, 2, 3, all the shit that's wrong with it, right? So, the black man's telling you that the Freemasons are a problem. The Catholic Church is telling you Freemasons are a problem, right? Now you got to make up your own mind. Do you agree with them, or are you okay with Freemasons taking the Bible out of the church and so forth, or the Bible out of taking God out of courts and schools and so forth, right? See, secret societies doing it. Okay, right back to you. And I'm going to use Noah Webster's definition for race, where he says a race is a series of descendants indefinitely. Thus, all mankind are called the race of Adam. Right? Doesn't matter your skin color. We're all the race of Adam. Now, there is another race. It's the race of the devil. Right? They're not in our race. They're not of the race of Adam. So when you hear these screaming people say that we're racist, right, it's because they're children of the devil. And yeah, we're supposed to rebuke the devil. He's not supposed to have anything to do in our society. And so I suggest that they line up everybody in Congress, representatives, congressmen, if you're going to hold an office in the United States, and they have to pass the holy oil test, right? Put the sign of the cross on their forehead with holy oil and see if they freak. Because if they got the devil in them, man, they won't be able to handle it. It's just the way it is. right? I mean, it's I talked about a video where this exorcist was talking about he had put the sign of the cross on the psychologist's hand that accompanied him to this uh, exorcism he was going to do, and he said, when we get there, the woman's not going to shake my hand, right? But she'll want to shake your hand. So please don't rub this off. Just shake her hand. And so when they got there, sure enough, that didn't shake the exorcist's hand, but she extended her hand to the psychologist who had this holy oil in her hand, and as soon as it touched, the woman started to spin around the room. Went into the kitchen and was just trying like hell to wash out that oil, right? They can't take it. Right? That would be the first test. And so, if they're of the race of the devil, then they cannot have any office in the United States. And if we made that happen, well, we wouldn't have this problem anymore. Because all these people that are, work their way up to the top, they're all Satanists. They may not even know that they are, but they've been demon possessed because they allowed themselves to be. They pledged allegiance to an organization instead of to God. All right. Okay, so let's talk about general liability insurance for a bit and see if we can figure out how to properly file a Terrorism Risk Insurance Act claim against our own insurance policy for the acts of terrorism that have been certified by the Treasurer, Secretary of Treasury. Now, of course, we got to get him to do that yet, but that's just a matter of making enough noise about it. I know that some of the government will be watching this video, so this is the first step, right? And I showed where you can go to the website and find the email address, and we'll just start pounding the risk management office of the Secretary of Treasury with emails until they give us an answer. Or whatever idea you have, right, to get them to do it. I'm just saying, if we could get them to do it, well, then you could file a claim. So, now, for myself, I got my insurance online, right? And this place called Thimble, they would let you buy insurance by the hour. But for a difference of maybe $10, for an hour, I could get a month's worth, so I got it by the month. But, by doing it, I ended up with a policy number, a coverage limit, the group I'm in, the insured name, the name of the company. It's all on there. And this has been extended now because they took another payment. So I had shown I was going through this with this Thimble company that they had under cleaners and janitors, they had housekeeper. And you can look up the definition of housekeeper in Webster's dictionary. It'll say that you're the owner, right? So it's okay. Well, I'll be the housekeeper. Fine, that's good because that's it's just one of my businesses. Robert Allen Rutluski is my business. My all caps is my business. In fact, I have an EIN for my business, so I can do all sorts of things in my business. I'm not limited to just doing one thing. And if I want to be a housekeeper, so be it. And for that one, I got insurance. But now it just covers Robert Allen Rutluski for what I'm trying to use it for the terrorism risk, right? Now, the other thing to use it for is if you were to get pulled over, have to go to court, somebody's filed a claim against you, whatever, well, then turn it into your insurance company because they're making the claim against your all caps. We don't have time to go on all that right now, but, this is how you do it, and it tells you how to report a claim and how to report a claim. And then it seemed to me that this was, you have to go get the claim form from the actual website. I don't remember exactly how I did it, but, but I have a claim form now. And in here, I had this confirmation of certified acts of terrorism coverage. All right, where this is all it said, Markle Insurance Company. This endorsement is attached to and made part of your policy in response to the disclosure requirements of the Terrorism Risk Insurance Act. This endorsement does not grant any coverage for change or change the terms or conditions of any coverage under the policy. Confirmation of certified acts of terrorism coverage. Terrorism Risk Insurance Act. Disclosure of federal participation. Disclosure of premium. We have notified you that under the Terrorism Risk Insurance Act, we must make certified act terrorism coverage available in the policies we offer. Certified acts of terrorism coverage has been provided because either you have indicated to us or to your agent that certified acts of terrorism coverage is desired, or we have provided certified act terrorism coverage at no additional charge, which is what they did for me. If you have chosen to purchase certified act terrorism coverage, the premium charged is the amount shown on the schedule for this notice. If there is no premium shown above, or the premium shows zero, then there is no separate premium for the coverage during this policy period. So it's covered. Okay, so, well, what did I do? So filling out the form, right? Put the date, the policy number, who's the insured. Well, I had on there. Oh, okay, here, hang on. So one of the things you can download then after you get this is your certificate of liability insurance. Right now, if you wanted to add additional insureds, you could, and they would go down here. But I haven't added any, and I'm still down there because I'm the insured. Right? My business and my person are both insured under this policy. And this is the producer who is actually your insurance agent. And the agent has a fiduciary duty to the person that he's the agent of, because we cannot go directly to Markel Insurance Company and get insurance. We have to go through an agent. Well, then they have a fiduciary duty. And so when you look at this paperwork, they're telling you're filling it out. It says to send the claim to Markel Insurance Company. But I think that this is part of the scheme. No, you're really supposed to send it to your agent, and they're supposed to send it to Markel Insurance Company. So that's what I've done this time. The first one I did, I sent to Markel Insurance Company first. This one I sent just to Thimble Insurance Services first. Right? And this is their email address. Okay, so based on the information on here, and I have this policy, but I don't really need this anymore, so I'm going to get rid of that. And here's the incident report form. This form should be completed if someone has been injured or property, including motor vehicles, has been damaged. Okay. Now it has this address. Look, this address doesn't have any city in it, and I wanted you to see this. See how they did my address here on the insured? They don't have any city in there. It's 10955 14 Mile Road Northeast. It doesn't say Rockford, which it normally would, and it only uses a 5-digit zip code. So that's the address I'm going to use for the insured. Now, who's the owner of the property damage? Well, that's my business, Robert Allen Rutluski, and its address, because I have an EIN. Let me go get that. It won't take long. Hang on. So, again, I had shown back in late 2017, I did a video called EIN and SSN in your name. And I was showing that you could get an EIN number as a sole proprietor just using your name, and you wouldn't have to have any comma, incorporated, or LLC, or all these other things they make you do when you try to do it as a trust or some other, limited liability entity. Because sole proprietors are 100% liable, which is why, well, you better get insurance, right? So I did. Now, it doesn't matter if you do it as a sole proprietor or not, right? If, like these shop owners that had all their shit destroyed, right? They have a business, and they probably have general liability insurance, and I'm sure they have an EIN number, so that would be the insured. But in my case, I don't have those. I just made myself a business, and so everybody can have one sole proprietorship. You can have all these other ones you want. If you want to open up any other business under a different name, you can. But you can have one in your name. And there you are, right? And so when I did the video, what I showed as I was doing the video was a form that somebody sent me. That probably I shouldn't have used it because it was a private company form that says, we'll do it for you to the IRS. When I had actually done it, I had done it on the IRS website, but I had failed to make screenshots. And, once you have the card, you can only have one, so I couldn't go do it again. It wouldn't let me do a second one. But if you wanted to have an EIN in your name as a sole proprietor, you can go directly to the IRS website and do it. And they're going to ask you for your NAICS code, national something or other, blah, 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 which is a 6 or 7 digit number, which I think there's 10,000 of them. So that would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I guess that's a 4-digit number. And the last one is all 9s, and that one is, not otherwise classified. Now, I didn't use that myself when I did it. I picked one of these other ones that have to do with like I was managing my estate, right? So I'm not going to tell you what to pick, but if I had to do it again, I just use the last one, all 9s. However many digits it is, just put all 9s in, and that, and you can go find it, NAICS codes, and put in, all the 9s. It'll tell you it's like not otherwise classified or something like that, right? You don't have to explain it to anybody. If the IRS sends you an EIN for that, then who's to say you can't do it? The IRS just did. You just say, well, look, I got an EIN number from the IRS for it, so who are you to tell me that's not my business class? The IRS agreed. If you don't agree, well, go, complain to the IRS. So anyways, this is how I got mine. And that wouldn't necessarily have to be this. This is, Bob's barber shop, if that's what it was, or whatever got damaged. So what information do you have on your certificate of liability insurance? Well, transfer it over here on the form. Name of the injured person, right? Well, that's still me, because it could be somebody else, but it's me. And my information, this is my address. Again, the reason I'm using this address is this is the address they gave me on my EIN. And it said in here that when filing taxes, payments, or related correspondence, it's very important that you use your EIN and the complete name and address exactly as shown above. So, okay. If it's good enough for the tax man, it's good enough for the incident report. Okay, well, where are we? So, what was the damaged property? Well, the owner of the property, owner of damaged property, Robert Allen Rotluski, right? My business owned the property. And what's the damaged property description? Disruption of interstate commerce, right? That's my business. Okay, I'm not really dependent on that one for myself. See, I don't really have any tangible property that was damaged, right? But if you owned a barber shop, you say, well, my barber chairs or your complete shop, right? The contents of your shop, whatever it is, right? Whoever's had their property damaged during this whirlwind by the devil will file a claim. Now, one of the things I was told when I had done the first one, as it comes to mind now, somebody sent me an email or something, and they said, look, they're not going to pay that because the Freemasons, all the insurance companies. Well, there you go. If we can get them to pay, if we can get the Freemasons to pay, it's like taking them, their God away from them, right? The God of money. So be it. So file the claim, right? Name of the injured person. Well, that's me. Got the same address. What's the description of the injury? Mental anguish caused by certified acts of terrorism, as defined by Section 102(1) of the Terrorism Risk Insurance Act as amended. That's all I'm going to say that's happened. I got mental anguish. Let's negotiate. All right, let's settle. Incident information. Date, well, I put the date that the Attorney General wrote his letter. But let's say you didn't have any insurance, and now after we do this, you find out, hey, they are paying, right? If I find out they do, well, just go get insurance and just put whatever the next thing to happen is. Because it's, these acts have been classified already by Barr as being acts of terror. So we just need to get the Secretary of Treasury to do the same thing, and anytime they do anything, we'll file a claim. And we'll just, tap them so many times, because what will happen, because you're putting it against your insurance company, it doesn't matter if Antifa has insurance or not, your insurance company has to pay it. And up to a certain amount, and then the federal government will take over for a certain amount, and then it goes back to the insurance companies for the majority of it. So there you go. Who were the witnesses? Well, Donald John Trump was, and so was William Pelham Barr. After the incident, what action was taken? The United States Attorney General certified the acts of violence of Antifa and other similar groups in connection with rioting is domestic terrorism after President Donald John Trump published that Antifa is a terrorist organization on his Twitter account. Right, that was the action taken. The president declared it to be a terrorist organization, and the the Attorney General said it's a certified act of violence, which is act terrorism, is domestic terrorism. If applicable, name of the facility where the injury was taken. No, I wasn't taken. No, but if you were actually hurt, well, then you'd be filling it out a little bit different than I am. All I'm saying is, go please, if you're in any of these areas where these people have been damaged, please go tell them, hey, the Terrorism Risk Insurance Act has a provision for you to file a claim against your general liability insurance company. Tell them to watch the video. Again, I don't have the answer yet, but I'm going to push for an answer, because that's how all these people can get their be compensated. Sign the thing, and I've attached a copy of the Office Attorney General press release number 2500, which is the one that he had talked about. So, or that's the one that the Attorney General put out. All right, that's all there was to it. And so I took that and a copy of the letter, and I sent it emailed to these folks right here. And then I took that and I emailed it to you might as well look at that for a second. Email received. Well, they got it now. So then I took it and I went to right. Then I forwarded it to the Office of Risk Management, Treasury.gov. And I said, the United States Treasury, Office of Risk Management, on May 31st, 2020, Attorney General William P. Barr issued a statement as Department of Justice Office of Public Affairs press release number 2500, stating that the violence instigated and carried out by Antifa and other similar groups in connection with the rioting is domestic terrorism and will be treated accordingly. I, Robert Allen Rutluski, first party insured, am submitting the attached incident report form provided in my general liability policy to the producer identified on my certificate of liability insurance for submission to the insurer as a first party insured claim to be settled in accordance with the Terrorism Risk Insurance Act. It is my belief that the producer is the insured's agent and has a fiduciary duty to act on behalf of the insured in reaching a settlement agreement with the insurer upon the secretary certifying the conclusion already published by the Attorney General. It is my I already did that one. So the Secretary of the Treasury owes the people of the United States a duty to concur with the published statement of the Attorney General and in accordance with the Terrorism Risk Insurance Act, certify as acts of terrorism the violence instigated and carried out by Antifa and similar groups in connection with the rioting ongoing in the United States. Please inform me of how the people of the United States can prove to the insurer that the Secretary of the Treasury has certified the acts of terrorism determined by the Attorney General. Officially submitted, Robert Allen Orlowski, Staff Sergeant, United States Army veteran. You get the idea, right? I'm just trying to push to get the Treasurer to certify what the Secretary or what the Attorney General has already stated, published. It's like him putting it on the bulletin board in the public square. He released a press release. Right, so it's public record. That's the stand of the Attorney General, that what's happening is already an act of terrorism. And all that's missing is the concurrence of the Director of Homeland Security and then the certification by the Secretary. But he's the one that needs to go get these things. I'm just providing him the first one. So that's what I did this time, right? And hey, it sent it out today, and well, now wait and see what happens. But but like I said, I had done one before that I got a reply to, right? And let's look at that just really quickly. That when they sent it to me, they sent it as certified mail, right? And they sent it to Staff Sergeant Robert Allen Orlowski, U.S. Army veteran, right? Which, okay, that's me. That's fine. Our insured is Robert Allen Orlowski, which isn't the same as Staff Sergeant Robert Allen Orlowski, U.S. Army veteran, right? It's like they're making a separation between who they sent the mail to and who's the insured. Well, I can already say, well, that's unfair and deceptive acts and practices, which is what the Federal Trade Commission is supposed to guard against, which is what the President said in his executive order that I showed in my last video. Right? So it's like, hey, I know where I can take this now. I mean, I can already tell you, this letter here, they were denying it. It's like, well, what am I going to do? And one of the things it says to do is, send them more information, which I did. But since then, I've learned I've realized what the President was saying. And so I'm going to now file a complaint with the FTC about this letter. But let's get through what the other errors are, because this is what I'm doing. This is supposed to be an official document having to do with insurance, right? So now, is the insurance company acting in good faith or not is what matters. Let's find out. So Markel Service, Incorporated, as a claim service manager of Markel Insurance Company, MIC, acknowledged the receipt of the Notice of Law Certified Act Terrorism related to COVID-19 outbreak, also known as the coronavirus. So one of the things is, elsewhere, when they talked about Markel Service Incorporated, it didn't have a comma in it. And now they put it in. So now these are like, two different things, Markel Service and Incorporated. So, by this jot and tittle, they've changed the meaning of the sentence from being what, the people that are really service, acting as the claim service manager, and this entity that they're pretending to be. So based upon review of the information provided to date and the policy, MIC concludes that there is no current obligation to indemnify you in this matter. A detailed explanation of MIC's disclaimers is set forth below. So according to the information provided, you have stated your description of injury in the incident report form completed April 29th as follows. Occurrence loss due to certified act of terrorism by state of Michigan. It's important to note that you took out your policy with MIC on April 29, 2020 at 9:21 a.m. ED and reported your claim to Markel Claims via email on April 29, 2020, 1:56 p.m. EDT. So basically, okay, what you're telling me is I filed my claim after after my policy had gone into effect. But what they're going to say is that these dates are after the date that's on this that was on the executive order that I was speaking of, right? That I took the insurance out after the event happened. Is basically what they're going to make one of their defenses. So when we spoke on the phone April 30th, 2020, you confirmed that no third party is making a liability claim against you, and that you, here's the important thing, that you, SSG Robert Allen Rutluski, U.S. Army veteran, as the insured, was wishing to pursue a claim for coverage due to a certified act of terrorism you claim have been committed against you by the state of Michigan due to their actions as a direct result of COVID-19. Well, I'm not doing it as Staff Sergeant Robert Allen Rutluski, U.S. Army veteran. You know, if we need to make a clarification, I'm just doing it as Robert Allen Rutluski, insured. Right, I'm the dude insured on the policy, not Staff Sergeant Robert Allen Rutluski. And that, they're making that clear up here, where they're saying our insured is Robert Allen Rutluski. But that's not how they're identifying me in the body of this letter. Right? So, it's just deceit, right? It's unfair and deceptive acts and procedures. So Mick insures Robert Allen Rutluski under a commercial general liability insurance. They're not disputing that Robert Allen Rutluski is insured. What they're disputing is that I'm Robert Allen Rutluski, because they mailed it to Staff Sergeant Robert Allen Rutluski. It actually says it on the, when you look in the window, it says Staff Sergeant Robert Allen Rutluski. And that's who the letter's written to. They're acting like I'm not me, right? They're trying to give me this false identity, and I'm not going to accept it. So then it goes on to say, then we're looking, this is at the bottom of this form. It says Markle claims Arizona, California, Illinois, New Jersey, Wisconsin, right? But this doesn't have anything to do with Michigan. Where's the one for Michigan? Right? So, California license, Markle West Insurance Services, OD 99 or 95581, right? That's wrong, because it don't have anything to do with Michigan. Where's the one for Michigan? And then they didn't complete these parts. All these should have who it was addressed to and the date, which it doesn't. And so, after they said their blah, blah, then all they're going to do is use 3 or 4 pages and pull pieces out of the policy to say whatever it is they want to say. In other words, a bunch of facts that have nothing to do with what it is I'm asking about, until they get to their conclusion. All other terms and conditions remain unchanged. While there has been no certified act of terrorism designated by the United States government, Department of Treasury, and no third party has come forward to make a liability claim against you, even if they had this exclusion, would bar coverage for the claim because the state of Michigan's actions in response to COVID-19 pandemic were taken and implemented before you took out your policy with Mick. And therefore, this exclusion would bar any coverage for a claim as an act you allege that caused you damages first occurred prior to the effective date of your policy. Okay, so, that may be true, but if it's ongoing and I get the thing, well, then it's still a problem. It was yesterday, today, and tomorrow. So anytime you would go get it, it should be, anytime you go get the insurance, if this particular act of terrorism was still going on, then it's still going on. It's still affecting you. Subject to all of its terms, conditions, and exclusions, your commercial general liability policy provides coverage for claims that are asserted against and insured by third parties alleging to have sustained damages by the insured. Okay, but this is talking about third parties. What about first parties? See, I'm saying, no, I'm a first party. And this is a style of insurance where both the first party and third party are insured. This is why, if you've ever been a contractor of some kind or had some kind of business, and like you want to go do work for the state or the federal government, they want a copy of your certificate of insurance. Well, they don't get it from you, right? They get it from the insurance company, and they want to be added as an additional insured on your insurance, because if you damage their property, they're not going to come as a third party. They're going to come as a first party, right? Because they're an additional insured on the policy. So that makes them a first party insured. A third party would be somebody who's not on the policy, just saying, look, you did it. I want to put a claim against your insurance. Like car insurance, in most states, that's how automobile insurance is, right? You have an accident, you file a claim against the other party's insurance. In Michigan, we have no fault insurance. If you have an accident, you file a claim against your insurance. It's that simple, right? I'm saying, well, that's what liability insurance is. It's first party insurance. If I have a claim, I file it against my insurance, not the other party's insurance, because Antifa doesn't have insurance. But, my insurance company does, and it has to insure for acts of terrorism. And I'm saying, well, that one's happened. There it is. I've got mental anguish over it. I've been damaged. Insure me. Right? Let's negotiate. What I don't want them to do is say, well, nobody brought a third party, so we're not going to. If a third party brought a claim against me who's not on my insurance policy, right, then the insurance company would have a duty to defend my interest, right? They would defend the lawsuit. Because you read the policy for general liability, it talks about defending lawsuits and settling claims. They're not the same thing. I don't want them to defend a lawsuit. I want them to settle my claim. Not a claim that somebody else brought, a third party. No, me. I brought the claim because I'm going to say it's, has to do with this risk insurance. It isn't that way for everything else necessarily, but it is for the certified acts of terrorism under the Risk Insurance Act that was made part of your policy. Subject to all its terms, conditions, and exclusions. I think I read that. So in conclusion, be advised that MIC's position is based on facts and information available to MIC at this time and subject to the availability and review of additional information. Okay, so I'm going to file a claim now using the Federal Trade Commission system. And after I file the claim, then I'll mail a copy to them and say, well, here's some more information. I filed a claim against you. And see if that makes them pay it. Right? So, when I did this, I didn't know what they were going to do. I just did it because I could. Right? I wanted to see what they would say, and I made them answer. And when they answered, they fucking committed fraud. They committed mail fraud or they committed unfair and deceptive practices because they're not identifying me in this letter as the insured. They're identifying me in this letter as a third-party insurance company. Or a third party to the insurance policy. Staff Sergeant Robert Allen Rutluski, you don't have a damn thing to do with this insurance. So what I did is I wrote up something and sent it to him. I don't know if I'm going to read all this. It's just blah, blah, blah that I sent to him, pointing out the things I just talked about. Right, that Robert Allen Rutluski with this EIN is the insured, and Robert Allen Rutluski with the Social Security number is the insured. But that I, Robert Allen Rutluski, filed an incident report as the insured owner of the insured business, Robert Allen Rutluski. And at no time did I insinuate that Staff Sergeant Robert Allen Rutluski, U.S. Army veteran, was an insured on this policy. They did that. I didn't do it. The insured is Michigan. The insured is in Michigan, not in one of these other states. No provision is given for Michigan. And I have no idea what Markel West Insurance Services OD 95581 is. Has to do with my policy. So I just pointed out things I had found wrong that I just talked about to you. Why did I put that in? There's a reason for that in there. Okay, because This thing said on here somewhere that these, together with something or other common policy conditions, complete the policy number. The name and address of the insured, a mailing address, right? So here's my declaration. It says name and mailing address, name, insured, and mailing address. Well, it has my name, and it just has Michigan 49341. It doesn't have my fucking address on there, right? So this declaration has omissions on it. It doesn't have my address. It's just, these are, the things you find wrong. Now, this is the certified mail they sent, right? The certified mail name and to Staff Sergeant Robert Allen Ritlewski. Well, they just certified that they're committing an act of fraud, right? This is a 18 U.S.C. 1341 and 1342 violation, if that's what I wanted to make it, using the code. But, what I learned last week, well, don't make it about the code. Just say it's deceptive. It's unfair and deceptive acts and procedures in accordance with the Federal Trade Commission rules. So, I don't know what else I can show you on that. That's really all I had to say. Right? So I sent all this. I sent them a copy of what they sent me back. Said this thing is fucking fraud. And it's kind of sat there ever since. So now I'm just going to say the same thing to the Federal Trade Commission. And let me show you what they give you when you do that. So hang on a second. Okay, so this is the website for the Federal Trade Commission. And if you just hit file a consumer complaint, you can do so. Or if you hit report identity theft, you can file a different kind of complaint. But, you hit this file a consumer complaint. And it takes you to this page, and it says rip-offs, mobile devices, so forth and so on. So all mine are going to be about rip-offs and imposters, right? Because they're not using my full legal name or whatever the case is, right? That's deceptive practices. So I had done a couple of these. I showed my last video, and when you get done putting them in, you can download a document that looks like this, right? Consumer report to the FTC. Got an FTC report number and all your information on what happened. So I'm going to do this with the situation I just described that I had already sent to the insurer, right? But this is from Markle Insurance Company. So they're involved, but so also is whoever is your producer, because they're your agent. And an agent has a fiduciary duty to his customer or his client. And so they're responsible for all this stuff, right? And there's, like I just showed, I have errors in my documents. So I'll probably actually be doing two of these, one to this Markle for this letter, and then one to my insurance provider for the errors in my records. More on that later. But as I was getting ready to do all these things, I had looked at my latest utility bill, and it's deceptive practices also, because it uses this as the mailing address with a middle initial instead of my full legal name, right? So I'm not happy with that. And it gives this as being the service address down here, and it has a +4 in it. Okay. But when you go to this service address, right, it uses, now this is the address. The service address is Robert Ritlewski at 1095 14 Mile Road Northeast, Rockford, Michigan. Da-da-da-da-da. Well, it doesn't use my middle name either, but it's different than the name that was used up here. Right? So my complaint is that this is unfair and deceptive practices because Robert Allen Rutluski isn't getting credit for paying the fucking utility bill. And so I have actually already written a letter to consumers about this. Just to, I assume I'm not going to get an answer. I might as well show it to you. What the hell? Got time. So hang on. So I had found the resident agent. I went to the state of Michigan website for businesses, and I put in Consumers Energy Company and found the registered agent. And put her name into Google with like email, her name and then email address, and ended up finding an email address for Melissa Gilspeen, cmsenergy.com. And now send it to her, and I said, notice to agents, notice to principal. I, Robert Allen Rutluski, declare Robert Rutluski or Robert A. Rutluski are not my full legal name, and their use on this style, the use of these styles of name is insufficient to identify my interest in account, whatever the account number is there. It is my belief that using Robert A. Rutluski in the mailing address and Robert Rutluski in the service address instead of Robert Allen Rutluski is identity theft and offends the Federal Trade Commission mandates or is a Consumers Energy administrative error. I require all use of Robert Rutluski or Robert A. Rutluski on this account to be replaced with my full legal name, Robert Allen Rutluski. And I want to audit this account for other errors and omissions. What is the procedure for correcting the record of my account number? Regards, Well, I sent that to her on, what day did I do it? Monday last week. Haven't got an answer yet, so, today or tomorrow I'm going to just hit this forward and put, well, hell, I just do it right now. Let's just get it over with. All right, so copy this here. Okay. Forward. Send it to her again. And make this second notice. I am still waiting for decision of ENER Energy Company. Is that what it was? Yeah. And I'll just leave it there and hit send. Okay, second notice. That usually gets people to answer, right? If you send something the first time they don't answer, just put second notice in front of it, send it again. That usually gets an answer. Now, one time, I was trying to get an answer from the Michigan House of Representatives. I had to do it 3 times. I actually put third notice on there, and that's when they answered. Right? So, they can test each spare. They can test spares 2 or 3 times. This is why, you can't just take no for an answer the first time. You got to say, look. As I started this video out, I'm talking about oaths of office, right? That if you tell a judge that you accept his oath and bind him to it, remind him of his fiduciary duty, and he doesn't acknowledge that you have, then just say it again. Say, well, Judge, apparently you didn't hear me. For the second time, I accept your oath, I bind you to it, and remind you have a fiduciary duty. Would you please acknowledge that I've accepted your oath? And if he doesn't say yes, he's acknowledged it, then say, well, for the 3rd time, Judge, I accept your oath, I bind you to it, and I remind you of your fiduciary duty. Please acknowledge that I've accepted your oath. And they will. And when they do, say, Judge, you don't have any authority in this matter. I'm not in your jurisdiction. Right? I want to bring charges against the person that brought me here under false pretenses. Because if you're in court, right? And they dismiss your case, well, then whoever brought you there falsely prosecuted you. And they got laws against false prosecution. And, and see what happens, right? Say, because here's the thing. If you go to all that trouble and wait till you're in the courtroom and now you have the judge decree that you've accepted his oath, then what is it you're going to ask him to do now that you've accepted his oath? I want to tell you one other oath story. When I first got involved in this stuff, I had done a paper about accepting the oath because I had listened to some guy, God, I can't remember his name now, Winston Shrout. He was doing a talk. I don't know if Winston's in jail now or not, but that's what they wanted to do to him, right? And he didn't take his own advice, but he had talked about in one of his videos where he was in court and he wanted to see the judge's oath, and the guy says, I don't need to show it to you, and it was this argument. And so Winston said, well, then in that case, I just accept your oath. And immediately the judge changed the way he was acting. Right? So, that works. So because of that, I had done a lot of research on this, and I had sent out some papers, like 25 pages long, where, did a manifesto on accepting the oath and where it all comes from, and da-da-da-da, and yada-yada-yada, way, way, way back in the day. Well, some guy here in Michigan paid attention, and he actually had the IRS pull guns on him in his fucking driveway. And they took him to jail, and they took him to court, and then he came home, right? It was like the first thing. Well, now he had to go back again. So this is the time we're talking about now. He had been arrested in his front yard under gunpoint by the IRS, taken to court, did whatever they did. He was released and given a court date, and now he's come back for that court date. And in that court date, he says to the judge, Magistrate, I accept your oath. I bind you to it, and I remind you you have a fiduciary duty. And when he told me the story, he said the judge's jaw dropped, and he looked over, and the prosecutor was putting his head in his hands, and the IRS guy sitting next to the prosecutor is acting like he doesn't know what the fuck's going on, because he doesn't. But the judge composed himself and said, well, sir, why don't you go have a seat in that room over there, and we'll send this IRS man in just a minute, and we'll see if we can get this resolved. And so he walked over in the sidebar room, whatever it was, and sat in there, and a few minutes later, in came the IRS guy, who looked pretty perturbed, or he looked pretty distraught, I guess is the proper term, saying, dude, what did you do out there? He really had no idea. He said, look, this can all go away. This is all you need to do, da-da-da-da-da, which was write some letter to the IRS about whatever it was the issue that he had, giving the answer that he was being given by the IRS guy. And he said, okay. And so they went back out in the courtroom. And that's what the guy said. Well, we said, if we get this, when we come to a conclusion, a satisfactory conclusion for the both of us, we're supposed to go back in the courtroom. So they did. And they took their places, and the judge looked at the guy and said, well, did you guys work it out? And the IRS guy said yes. And then he looked at, our hero. And he said, are you satisfied? He said, yes. If that's all it takes, that's what I'll do. And the judge said then, well, is there anything else the court can do for you? And he said, no, I guess we're done. And the judge said, okay, then we're done here today. And case closed, case dismissed, whatever the fucking words were. I don't even know what they did. They said, I don't even know what the IRS man told the guy. It doesn't matter. What matters is what you're going to say when you go to court. I accept your oath, I bind you to it, and I remind you of a fiduciary duty, is what got this guy in a federal court after he had been taken there under gunpoint by IRS agents to write in some little fucking letter and have it all go away. Okay? So, you have to, but the important, so that was all good. But the real important thing is the judge said, is there anything else the court can do for you? And he didn't have an answer. And I don't know that I have the exact answer. But I'm going to say, Judge, it appears I have some civil defect in my records that's keeping me from enjoying my estate, and it's being withheld from me by the federal government or the state. I'd like to have that corrected so I can have access to my estate. Right? Because our all capital letter name has, it's, it's a business. It has our estate property in it. And that's what they're acting like we're lost beyond the sea. See, we're not in the United States. This is why they put the United States of America. Now we're lost beyond the sea. And if you want to get your estate back, you have to come before the proper magistrate and appear. And I don't know how to do that. But I know if that's where I had been in the court now, that's what I'd be asking the judge. It's like, well, Judge, I believe there's a civil defect in my records that's keeping me from enjoying my estate. I'd like you to correct the errors I want all administrative errors that have to do with me corrected in all official records. Because that's what it is. It's all errors and omissions, right? They use a middle initial. They forget to put in your address. They do something to fuck up the record. And if you don't go back and correct it, well, then they can say, well, we tried to send it. It didn't go there. We couldn't mail it. We didn't have his address. Whatever their fucking reason is. Like I'm showing you, man. Where is that damn thing here? All right, here's my frickin'. This is what I'm relying on to say that I have insurance, right? This is my declaration. Well, it doesn't have an address for me. Well, that's deceptive practices, right? That's unfair or deceptive acts or practices, which is what the Federal Trade Commission has jurisdiction over. It doesn't have jurisdiction over 18 U.S.C. 1340, 1381, 1382. One being fraud and swindles, the other being using false names in the mail, right? It doesn't have jurisdiction over that. What it has jurisdiction over is unfair and deceptive acts or procedures, something like that. And we'll have to go look. Well, I'm not going to go look. I'm going to go file a complaint. But I'm just saying that's where we are with this stuff. So that's what I wanted to show you all, right? That let's go back to the beginning. So in conclusion for today, hey, all lives matter, but I only kneel for Jesus, right? Don't be taking a knee for Black Lives Matter, because Black Lives Matter is a George Soros funded terrorist organization, and taking a knee is a sign of allegiance. Now, the mayor of Chicago will be all sorts of happy you do that, right? You're agreeing to the New World Order. So, it's a scheme. This is what they do. These are schemers. They scheme all the time. So, just don't be taking a knee. And don't kneel to the devil. Rebuke his ass and file a Terrorism Risk Insurance Act claim, or we'll put him out of business. Because somebody's going to have to pay the bill. If we can get the Secretary of the Treasury to agree that they're certified acts of terrorism, well, then there's not much they can do except pay the damn claim. And if they won't pay the claim, well, then file it with the FTC and we'll see how that does. I mean, these are things that have been pointed out by the President and the Attorney General, so I'm just trying to take advantage of the things they're saying. Okay, very good, y'all. Have a great day, and God bless on Holy Trinity Sunday. Remember, it's just a war against good and evil. We're just agents working for God, battling agents working for the devil. But God wins. Children of the light are the winners. Amen.